Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to attempt explaining how I go about making my sketches for portraits or whenever I have to draw something from a photo. I'm not sure how helpful this is going to be, but if some of you do find this useful, definitely let me know so I know whether or not to make more similar videos. This is not going to be a super detailed portrait, it is just to show how I sketch. Okay, so the first thing I do is that I choose where to start. Usually I'll choose an eye because to me that's just a logical starting point. I'll then slowly begin sketching. The way I do it is kind of simplifying the image in my head, so instead of focusing on the entire face or the entire eye, I'll focus on the shapes and angles. So when sketching this eye, I'll focus on the outline or curve of the eyelid, as well as the angle and length of the line. I'll then do the same with the waterline, and once you have the basic shape, you can start adding in the details. If you have a hard time placing the iris in the right spot, try finding the center of the shape you just drew, then do the same with the photo. Dividing the image into smaller sections like that can definitely make it easier, especially if you're working on a larger area like a cheek or forehead. I then continued by sketching the fold of the eyelid, again just focusing on the angle, but now also looking at the distance between the top of the eye or bottom outline of the eyelid and then the second outline of the eyelid, which is the fold or crease. A method you can use to kind of check and see if you've got the right angles is to find 2 points. In this case I chose the inner and outer corner of the eye. Then hold your pencil against the photo to get that angle and move the pencil onto your drawing to see if it matches. So moving on with the next feature, which in this case is going to be the eyebrow. Once again, I'll kind of find a point on the photo and focus on that. Here that would be the inner corner of the eye. And then I'll imagine a line going straight up from there and see when and where that line will hit the eyebrow. I actually rarely hold my pencil up against the photo when drawing, and I never really think of these points and lines as much as it may seem like in this video. I'm only doing this because I'm focusing so much on trying to explain what goes on in my head when sketching and drawing. Then to place a nose, I do the same thing, which is just looking at the distance between what I've already drawn and what I'm about to draw. So in this case, that would be the eyebrow and kind of like the bridge of the nose, or, you know, the nose between the eyebrows kind of thing. Also, looking at the shapes of the shadows and the highlights and adding some of those can help make it easier to figure out the placement of the next features. And continuing with the rest of the nose, I'm just following the angle and shape. One thing I do want to mention is that you don't need to worry about making it super accurate at this point. This is just a sketch, and that's what an eraser is for. If you find out that something is off, you can always adjust it. I'm not saying that this is the best nor the right way to sketch, because there are so many ways you can go about doing it. I know a lot of people will start out by making some very loose shapes, almost just circles, to get an idea of the size of the head, the angle, etc., and then slowly begin adding more details and shapes. I'm self-taught, so I've always just tried copying what I see. A great way to practice this specific technique would be to practice on some more simple faces. Babies' faces are a good option. I've always seen a baby's face basically just like a circle with eyes, a nose and a mouth, though of course that's slightly exaggerated. Another option would be to practice drawing cartoon characters, because although they aren't exactly real people, you still get a sense of judging the shapes and the distance between the different features the same way I do here. And there are characters out there that will give you great practice when it comes to drawing realistic faces. That could be superheroes from comic books such as Wonder Woman. Those characters, although they are characterized versions of people, are still pretty accurate to what a real face or body would look like. Here I'm starting to put in more pieces of the puzzle, so to speak, using what I've already sketched out to draw the rest of the face. And so again, for the chin, you can see that it's not completely horizontal if you use the pencil technique. Try to really focus on each individual part of the face, simplify it in your head and focus on the overall shapes rather than looking at the entire face at once. Obviously, this is a pretty compressed video of how to sketch a face for a portrait, because trying to get all the information or details into one video is kind of difficult. And so if some of you somehow found this just the least bit helpful, let me know. Let me know if you want videos focusing on smaller areas of the face, so a video focusing on the eyes, the nose, something like that. But there is something else I just wanted to talk about or give my thoughts on. When I posted a couple of my other Artsy Monday videos, I had 1 or 2 people ask me if I freehand my sketches or if I trace them from the photos. I freehand, I never trace, I have never traced, well, maybe in kindergarten when tracing, pictures of Disney princesses to color or something like that, but when actually drawing, I have never traced. And I think that most people are aware that there are basically 2 groups or 2 sides of this subject. There are the people who are okay with tracing and there are the people who are against tracing. I'm pretty sure I've heard all the arguments there is to this case or subject matter or whatever you want to call it. There are people who are okay with tracing and use it as a learning tool or to save time, and then there are people who see it as cheating because you don't actually draw it yourself. I'm personally against tracing, but I'm not gonna sit here and tell you if you should not trace. That's really up to you to judge. The only thing I do want to say is that if you do use tracing for your drawings, let people know. It doesn't matter if you're just showing it to friends and family or on social medias or if you're selling your work. Let people know. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when you show someone a drawing and say that you drew that, they're gonna automatically assume that you drew it, not that you traced it. And so if you didn't actually draw it, you're not only being dishonest to them, but also to yourself, because you're taking credit for something you didn't do. And for those saying that they do it to save time, I don't think art should ever be rushed, and saving time to me is kind of the worst excuse you could give. But that's just my personal opinion. The best way I can really explain this, and you're gonna think I'm crazy for saying this, but that is by talking about an episode I saw of Kitchen Nightmares with Gordon Ramsay. And in this episode, he's backstage in the kitchen with the owner of the restaurant, and he's found out that this restaurant is serving meatloaf that is frozen. And so the owner, tells him that he's okay with serving frozen meatloaf, that, he does it to save time and there's nothing wrong with it. Ramsay then tells the owner to go out into the restaurant with 2 slices of frozen meatloaf and tell the customers that that is what he's serving them. Obviously, he's not gonna do that, and he came up with a bunch of excuses, but bottom line, he didn't want to do it. And if you look at the frozen food kind of like tracing, you do it to save time or because it's easier, whatever the reason is. If you're okay with doing it and you see no problem at all with tracing, then there should be no problem telling people that that is what you're doing. However, if you don't feel like telling people that you're tracing, then you're probably not actually okay with using that method. And again, especially if you're selling your drawings, because a customer in a restaurant is going to automatically assume that the food the restaurant is serving is fresh, and it's kind of the same thing. Unless otherwise stated, someone buying one of your drawings or, commissioning a piece is going to automatically assume that you are free-handing that. A lot of people are gonna be okay with you tracing, because even if given the accurate outline, it still takes skill to fill in the highlights and shadows. But other people are not gonna be okay with it, and they do deserve to know if you did trace. So my way of looking at it is that it's up to you if you do want to trace or not. But if you do trace and use that for your finished drawings that you're showing to people, let them know that you traced it, because otherwise you're being dishonest. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.